The events described in this video took place in 2008 in Auburn, Alabama, USA. Although 15 years have passed since then, the final word in the Lauren Burk case has yet to be spoken. Lauren Ashley Burk was born December 30th, 1989 in Marietta, Georgia. Her parents, James Burk and Vivian Gershon, later divorced. Lauren had a sister, Jacqueline Burk, and a brother, Chad Burk. After high school, Lauren went to Auburn University where she studied graphic design, was an active member of Delta Gamma sorority, played lacrosse, and was generally active in the campus community. Lauren was described by her friends as a well-liked, excellent student, always smiling, happy, and helpful. While still a high school student, Lauren started dating a guy named Sean McQuaid. After high school, they both enrolled at Auburn University, where they continued their relationship. At this point in life, getting an education was a priority for both young people, but that didn't stop them from making plans for their future together. Unfortunately, however, not all of Lauren's plans and dreams were destined to come true. She started the morning of March 4th, 2008, by having breakfast at a cafe with her boyfriend Sean. At 11 o'clock, Lauren went to class, after which she called her father James to discuss plans for the spring break and a visit to the dentist. After finishing her conversation with her father, she went to Sean's dorm, where she stayed until the evening. At 8:30 p.m., she had an appointment with her classmate Michael. They were to meet in the library and prepare a study assignment together. When Lauren, around 8 p.m., left Sean's room, it was already dark outside. Her car, a black 2001 Honda Civic, was parked in the parking lot next to the dorm, and she moved towards it. That was the last time Sean saw Lauren. Michael, whom Lauren was supposed to meet at the library, started calling her cell phone after she didn't show up for her appointment, but Lauren didn't answer for some reason. He kept calling over and over, and finally he heard Lauren's voice on the other end. She said she wasn't coming to the library because she'd forgotten all about the appointment, and then she hung up. A little later, at about 9 p.m., 911 received a call about an injured girl who had been seen lying on the road between the Farmville Baptist Church and Route 280 on the 147 freeway. It was Lauren. Drivers stopped their cars in the roadway, blocking traffic in both directions. Lauren was lying on her back in the middle of the road, taking slow, deep breaths. She was suffocating. There were many wounds on her body and only socks on her feet. At 9:12 p.m., the first police car arrived on the scene, at which point Lauren was already unconscious. A few minutes later, paramedics arrived, and as they loaded Lauren into the ambulance, her pulse was barely palpable. At 9:35 p.m., Lauren was taken to East Alabama Medical Center, where doctors began trying to save her life. 8 minutes earlier, at 9:27 p.m., 911 dispatchers received multiple reports of a car fire on the Auburn University campus. Firefighters and police were immediately sent to the address the callers gave. Unable to find the owner of the burning car among the crowd of curious students attracted by the fire from their dormitories, police checked the license plates and discovered that the owner of the car was someone named James Burk, a resident of Georgia. James Burk is Lauren's father. The police contacted James by phone and learned that the actual owner of the fire-ravaged Honda was his daughter, Lauren, who attends Auburn University. James immediately asked what was wrong with his daughter, but the police officers had nothing to say. They didn't know where Lauren was and told James that no one was in the burning car. After James talked to the police officer, he immediately started calling his daughter's cell phone, but she didn't answer, which only added to his anxiety. Unable to reach Lauren, James first called friends of his daughter that he knew, but none of them knew anything about her whereabouts or the car fire. He then called his ex-wife and Lauren's mother, Vivian Gershon, hoping that maybe she knew where their daughter might be. Lauren's mother didn't know anything about what had happened either. At 9:40 p.m., Vivian called her daughter's boyfriend, Sean. That's how Sean found out that Lauren was missing and that her car had been burned. Sean, calling mutual acquaintances of Lauren and trying to find out if anyone had seen her that evening, learned that she had canceled a meeting at the library saying she had forgotten about it. However, Sean knew for a fact that Lauren hadn't forgotten about her appointment for the evening, as when she left his room about 2 hours ago, she had planned to go straight to the library. While family and friends tried to figure out where Lauren had gone, doctors at East Alabama Medical Center were battling to keep her alive. Since Lauren was brought in unconscious and without any personal belongings or documents, the doctors did not know her name. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, doctors were unable to save Lauren's life. She was pronounced dead about an hour after being admitted to the medical facility. The cause of her passing was a single bullet wound. The bullet, which had traveled out, had punctured both of Lauren's lungs. Experts concluded that the muzzle of the gun was only a few inches from Lauren's skin at the time of the shot. Police officers, comparing the girl's passing at the hospital and the burned-out car on campus, whose owner was missing, quickly realized that the victim, who could not be saved by doctors, was Lauren Burk. The very next day, March 5, 2008, James Burk identified the body of his daughter after visiting from Atlanta. News of Lauren's passing quickly spread around campus. Auburn University released a statement about Lauren Burk's passing, urging students and staff to be extra cautious on and off campus, but assuring them that the campus is safe. Many of you and your parents have called and are understandably concerned. There is no indication of any additional danger to campus or student safety, the statement said. The Delta Gamma Society released a statement about what fraternity representatives called an unexpected and disturbing crime. The society urged sisters of the Auburn branch to cooperate fully with detectives while they sort out what happened. While Lauren's family and friends were grieving, police were trying to figure out who took her life, how the car fire was connected to it, and whether other students should be wary. Both the spot along the road where Lauren Burk was found and the area around her car were processed for evidence. "We have put every resource we can into finding the person responsible for this crime," said Auburn Police spokesman Captain Tom Stouffer. Auburn, Alabama is a relatively quiet student community, and we take these things to heart. If someone gets hurt or dies, we all feel it, and we won't rest until we find the perpetrator. Stouffer also said that Alabama Governor Bob Riley offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in Burke's case. Lauren's charred car was taken to the Auburn Police Department. Investigators from the State Forensic Laboratory and officers from the State Fire Chief's office sifted through the remains of the car's burned interior. They found scraps of burned clothing, Lauren's melted digital camera, and the car owner's manual. A .38 caliber bullet was found under the front seat, which could mean the interior of the car was the scene of the crime, and the perpetrator had set it on fire to destroy the evidence. Detectives interviewed Lauren's family, friends, and boyfriend. None of them could name a single person who wanted to harm Lauren and was capable of doing so. Knowing that before her passing, Lauren was in a dorm at Sean's, the investigators searched his room, but nothing was found to link Sean to the crime. After speaking with Michael, whom Lauren was supposed to meet in the library, detectives learned that when Lauren answered his phone, he heard a noise similar to that of a moving car. At the same time, it emerged that someone had used Lauren's bank card several times, shortly after she was found lying in the road. In all likelihood, the person who had Lauren's bank card was involved in her incident, and the police began looking for him. However, events soon took an unexpected turn. Less than 3 days after Lauren's passing, at 9:55 a.m. on March 7, 2008, in the parking lot of the Walmart supermarket in Noonan, Georgia, about 75 miles from Auburn, a man of African descent attacked a 72-year-old woman as she was getting into her car. The attacker hit her on the head, threatened her, and told her to get in the passenger seat. He himself got into the driver's seat and tried to drive away from the parking lot, but noticed that an eyewitness to the attack was following him, talking to someone on the phone. The thought of the bystander calling the police prompted the perpetrator to return to the Walmart parking lot. He stopped and got out of the stolen vehicle, ran over to a nearby silver Chrysler Sebring, got in, and fled the scene in a hurry. A few hours later, 4 officers chased the fleeing Chrysler at high speed toward Columbus, West Georgia. The driver did not respond in any way to stop, endangering other road users. During the chase, police observed the driver of the Chrysler throwing an object out the window. One of the chase crews stopped and searched for the object. Police officers found a .38 caliber revolver on the side of the road. Meanwhile, the chase continued, but at one point, the perpetrator's vehicle broke down and smoke billowed from under the hood. The driver stopped abruptly in the roadway and opened the door. Next, a police officer, who was in pursuit on a motorcycle, crashed into the open door. After the collision, the officer flew over the handlebars of the motorcycle and fell to the pavement, only fortunately not seriously injured. The road where the perpetrator stopped was through a forest, and it was into the woods that he rushed to flee. He could not escape, however. The police quickly caught up with him and snapped handcuffs on his wrists. Courtney Lerell Lockhart was born on October 20th, 1984. In the words of his family, he was a nice, fun-loving guy until he joined the U.S. Army. He was sent to Iraq in 2004, from which he returned as someone else in 2005, according to his mother. "He wasn't the Courtney I knew," his mother said. Courtney was a cheerful guy, but after he returned from Iraq, he never smiled again, never let anyone stand behind him, and sometimes hid in the closet or under the bed. In 2006, Lockhart and his girlfriend, with whom he had by this time broken up, had a daughter. Also in 2006, he was court-martialed for assaulting other soldiers, using illegal substances, and deserting his unit without permission. He spent 7 months in detention before being dishonorably discharged from the Army in December 2006. As 2008 approached, Lockhart was said to have gone increasingly off the rails. He barely showered, stopped visiting his daughter, and was heavily addicted to illegal substances. Beginning in February 2008, he committed a string of burglaries, and with the exception of a convenience store robbery, his methods were always the same. He would approach the victim from behind as she was getting into her car in the parking lot, threaten her with a gun, demand that she give him her purse, and attempt to take possession of the car. One such crime ended taking the life of Lauren Burk. Lockhart's string of assaults stopped on March 7, 2008, after he attacked a 72-year-old woman and failed to evade a police chase. After his arrest, Courtney Lockhart, 23, was taken to the police station, where he confessed that he was the one who kidnapped and took Lauren Burk's life. The interrogation was videotaped and became a key piece of evidence at trial. Plus, Lauren's personal belongings such as her iPod and bank cards were found in his car. He gave a detailed account of the events of the day he kidnapped Lauren. It was Tuesday, March 4, 2008. Lockhart woke up in his silver Chrysler Sebring. He had spent the previous night in his car, not far from East Alabama Medical Center. He needed money, so he started driving around Auburn looking for another victim. It's worth noting that all the people he attacked were women, none of them men. His drive ended on the campus of Auburn University, where he parked next to the student dorms. He spent several hours sitting in his car watching the students. Around 8 p.m., he noticed some girl walk up to the car parked next to him and leisurely opened the door. It was Lauren. Without thinking long, Lockhart grabbed his revolver and approached Lauren from behind. Poking her with the muzzle of his gun, he asked her how much money she had on her. When he didn't get an answer, he pushed Lauren into the car, into the front passenger seat, and got behind the wheel. According to Lockhart, Lauren said nothing but screamed in fear. When she finally calmed down, she pulled $200 from her purse, handed it to him, and begged him to leave. Instead of leaving, however, he ordered Lauren to take off her clothes. At gunpoint and hearing threats against her, Lauren complied, stripping off everything but a pair of socks. According to Lockhart, there was only one reason he made Lauren undress. He thought that if she had no clothes on, she would not want to escape. Lockhart then began to drive around the streets of Auburn. All the while he was driving with one hand on the wheel and with the other holding Lauren at gunpoint. She tried to dissuade him from committing the crime, and when he said his life was over, Lauren promised to help him find a job. At some point, her phone started ringing. Lockhart told her to answer it and make something up so no one would suspect anything. It was a call from Michael, whom Lauren was supposed to meet at the library. When she answered, She said she had forgotten about the meeting and hung up right away. Lockhart said that they continued to drive through the streets of the city, and Lauren wouldn't give up trying to talk him into letting her go. She said she would help him overcome the difficulties he was facing. As they were driving down Highway 147, Lauren opened the door to jump out of the moving car, and at that point Lockhart said he accidentally fired a shot. As we now know, the fired bullet pierced both of Lauren's lungs, plus she sustained injuries from the fall. She managed to wave to passing drivers before her strength failed her and she lost consciousness. Lockhart told investigators that he parked outside the church and watched as cars began to stop next to Lauren lying on the pavement. Realizing that the police would be arriving any minute, he hurriedly fled. Planning to destroy the evidence he had left in the car, he drove to a gas station and bought a can of gasoline, which he paid for with Lauren's bank card. He doused the interior of the car with the gasoline he bought, then got in and drove to the campus where he abducted Lauren because his Chrysler was parked there. According to Lockhart, as he drove, he became dizzy from the gasoline fumes, so he rolled down the windows to let air in from the street. You might be wondering why he didn't drive to the campus first and doused Lauren's car with gasoline there. Why did he drive on a powder keg, since a short circuit or spark could have caused the car to burn up with him? Perhaps it had something to do with Lockhart's mental problems or low IQ, but we shall talk about that a little later. Upon arriving on campus, Courtney took $46, an iPod, and her bank cards from Lauren's car before setting the car on fire and driving off in his Chrysler. He drove to a gas station where he paid for the gas with Lauren's money. He then returned to campus again to see if the car had burned all the way down. Investigators began to question whether all of Lockhart's testimony was true. They speculated that Lockhart had forced Lauren to undress, not so that she would not run away as he claimed, but for an entirely different purpose. But he could not get what he wanted because Lauren suddenly jumped out of the moving car. Also, the investigators doubted that Lockhart shot Lauren by accident. It seemed unlikely given the fact that Courtney had served in the Army and knew well how to handle a gun. It seemed more logical that Lauren realized that Lockhart wasn't going to let her go and decided that her only chance of escape was to jump. She opened the door, and as she jumped out of the car, and Lockhart shot her. Ballistics testing confirmed that the bullet found in Lauren's car was fired from the gun Lockhart had thrown out the window as he tried to evade a police chase. In addition, experts ran tests and ruled out the possibility of an accidental discharge. The trigger had to be pulled hard enough to make the shot. Lauren's family and friends bid her farewell on March 9th, the same day investigators interrogated Lockhart for the second time. The next day, he was formally charged multiple times in the Lauren Burk case. The trial began on November 8, 2010. Lockhart's attorneys claimed that their client had a mental illness because of his military service and that the shooting of Lauren was accidental. According to court documents, Lockhart pleaded not guilty by reason of mental defect or insanity. The court was presented with the testimony of a psychologist who testified that Lockhart had an IQ of 86, which is below average, that he had some symptoms from being in combat in the military, but he did not have PTSD, and that Lockhart was immature and not thinking straight. Although the state attempted to introduce evidence of Lockhart's other crimes and his dishonorable conduct in the military, the trial judge excluded that evidence. After the guilt phase of trial, the sentencing phase immediately followed. Lockhart presented witness testimony and evidence in an attempt to cast himself as a war hero who was mentally disturbed by combat and the death of his commanding officer. The jury rendered a special verdict in which an additional aggravating factor was the taking of a person's life in the course of the kidnapping. The jury voted 12-0 to recommend a sentence of life without parole. The trial judge later disagreed with the jury's advisory sentence and sentenced Lockhart to death. In a 28-page sentencing order, the judge explained why he disagreed with the jury's opinion. He concluded that the kidnapping weighed heavily in favor of the death penalty. The victim was alone, unarmed, and she was chosen by Lockhart at random. The kidnapping is even more egregious because she was taken from a college campus, a place where students should feel safe, and forced into her own car. Lockhart forced her to undress and held her at gunpoint in order to prevent her escape. The court also emphasized that the jury was unaware of Lockhart's crime spree and the true nature of Lockhart's military service. Although the jury heard testimony regarding Lockhart's service, the jury was unaware of the full extent of Lockhart's military disciplinary record, wrote the judge. The court reasoned that, had the jury been aware of the additional facts known to the court, their sentencing recommendation would likely have differed. 15 years have passed since Lauren's death, and Lockhart is still on death row in Alabama and has not given up trying to appeal his sentence. After his conviction and death sentence, he appealed to an Alabama court, which upheld the sentence in August 2013. In April 2014, the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals denied Lockhart's request for a retrial. He then appealed to the Supreme Court of Alabama, but in September 2014, his motion was again denied. In January 2015, Lockhart appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States. In April of that year, the Supreme Court of the United States denied his petition. In 2018, Lockhart made another attempt to challenge the sentence. Lawyers from a human rights organization who represented him tried to convince the court that the lawyers defending Lockhart in 2010 had mishandled the case. Although there were some flaws in Lockhart's 2010 defense, it ultimately did not change the outcome, with the death sentence being upheld again. In April 2021, the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals upheld Lockhart's death sentence. Lauren's parents said they would never give up and would do everything in their power to keep Lockhart's death sentence from being overturned. "Courtney Lockhart gave my daughter the death penalty. There's no reason why he shouldn't have the death penalty. That's all I have to say," Burke's father Jim said. "He didn't give her a second chance. He shouldn't get a second chance either," Lauren's mother Vivian said. As of today, Courtney Lockhart remains on death row in Alabama.